Hey, this is John Williams with this heat we're experiencing. Is your home staying cool enough? If not, it could be those leaky old windows and doors. Call Next Door and Window today. They'll determine the problem areas that should be addressed. And right now, buy one, get one 30% off on all windows and doors. Plus 18 months of interest-free financing. Call 1-800-NEXT-DOOR to schedule a free evaluation. Or go to 1-800-NEXTDOOR.com.
Next Door and Window, thousands of options, one perfect fit.
Rae Kaplan, a friend of ours who you've heard on the show many times, is in the studio. Hi, Rae.
Hello.
You should come to our show.
I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
That sounds very interesting.
It's an education, and who wants to get an education? It's fun. It's just hilarious. You will not have seen anything like it. Even if you've seen the Jefferson Show, this one is amazing. Did you know this? Roosevelt, when he was giving a speech in, I want to say, Milwaukee, survived an assassination attempt.
I did not.
A guy came up, pointed a gun at him, shot him point blank. He had his speech folded up in his chest pocket, and he had a little tin of space that he put his glasses in.
Uh-huh.
The bullet went through all of the folded over pages of his speech. It's like 50 pages, and the glass tin, and penetrated his chest muscles, but it didn't puncture his heart or lungs. So he's got a flesh wound, and he's able to survive it. They go, oh, my God, he's bleeding badly. He goes, hold it. This is a moment. If I give this speech now, they are really going to be impressed. And he gave an hour-long speech.
Unbelievable.
Then he gives his campaign speech for an hour. And at the end of the speech, he's getting a little weary. They go, dude, you've got to go to the hospital. He says, okay, fine, but you're not carrying me, and I'm going to walk, because he was very proud and very robust. And he walks in and survives that.
Tough guy.
This is crazy stuff. Okay. We asked you to come into the studio today because the current president has announced or signed, I think, a very interesting piece of legislation.
Right. He signed an executive order that basically allows veterans who are disabled as a result of their service to get complete, total forgiveness of any federal student loans that they have. So currently, only about 20% of eligible veterans have actually applied for and received the discharge of their federal loans under this particular statute that allows for veterans to get that kind of forgiveness. And because the application process was kind of cumbersome, as it usually is, he decided to just really streamline it, and it's going to be much faster and easier to get approved.
So what he's done isn't create new forgiveness, but streamline the process.
Exactly. Right.
Only 20% of veterans. In other words, men and women are paying on loans right now they don't have to.
Right.
80% of them.
80% of them. And, for some of the veterans, too, who are really struggling financially, especially if they have illnesses that make it impossible for them to work, they're eligible under this veterans forgiveness or general TPD discharge. But it all kind of falls under the same statute, but this one is going to be expedited and much easier to get. So if you're a veteran and you were disabled as a result of your service, then it'll be a very fast process to get your federal loans completely forgiven. And it's not taxed as income.
Which some forgiveness programs do.
Well, mostly if you get private sector loan forgiveness, then you are going to get it taxed on that.
So if somehow you got $100,000 of debt eliminated, you would pay probably $25,000 because somebody had to come up with that money. You've, in essence, received income to pay off your loan.
Right. The IRS would view that as income.
So there's no free lunch, but still, that's not bad. But in this case, how disabled do you have to be?
Well, the statute says that you have to be so disabled that you can't work. But it's that is a little bit of a gray area, but we can clear it up by basically the Veterans Association will give you something showing that, in their opinion, you can't work, and so you're eligible for it.
Because if I was a carpenter, I could see if I was physically disabled as a result of my service, it would be difficult to climb a roof and pound nails. But they might say, well, you could be a switchboard operator. You could, Oh,
no, that's not. The statute is much more forgiving than that. Just if you have a disability and the disability is a result of your service, it doesn't say that the disability, means that you can not do any type of work, just that you can't do the type of work that you wanted to do.
So it's for the service that you were engaged in. So if I come home and have a car crash, that doesn't count.
Right, that doesn't count because that's not service related.
And I suppose some of these can be a little gray too. If I have PTSD or lingering effects from something that later made impossible for me to do my work. I suppose those are negotiated things too.
That might be a little bit less clear, but he has made it clear, at least in the executive order, that basically TPD discharges for veterans are pretty much going to fly through.
And these are for federal loans.
Right.
So I wonder what a typical scenario would be. Are we talking about a young man or woman, 25, 30 years old, who was serving in Afghanistan or something like that?
Usually, but here's the interesting thing, too, is that let's say that person came home from serving our country and then later became a parent and took out federal Parent Plus loans. Those loans would also be eligible for forgiveness and discharge. So let's say you took out loans once you got married and had kids and you took out federal loans to finance your kids' education. You can also get rid of those.
So this would work for a Vietnam veteran?
Yes.
Not just somebody who's recently returned.
Right, exactly. So young people and older generations as well.
Is anybody paying off federal student loans anymore? Because the last time you were here, you said that you had a Parent Plus loan, and it was a federal loan, and you were on SSI or SSD. Mm-hmm. If you were a Social Security recipient, those loans would be forgiven. Right,
that's correct. We actually just had a client that I saw very recently, within the last 2 days, and we just got rid of $130,000 in federal loans for him because he's SSD.
Well, I know somebody who, I won't say the name because I actually don't know the direct name of the person, but I know the friend of the friend who said that somebody went to you and they had $200,000 in student debt similarly forgiven. Mm-hmm. I can't do this interview that I don't say these things, Rae. I can't believe that anybody has that much debt. I just feel bad about that.
Right.
And I also marvel at the fact that there is a path to forgiveness on this.
There usually is. I mean, it really depends, but most of the time, if you have federal loans, there is either a very manageable way to pay them back or a way to get rid of them altogether.
Federal loans, right. Not private loans.
Correct.
What percentage of college loans would you say are which?
I think the last time I looked at that, I think it was about 60-40 federal.
Really?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember what kind of loan I took out. It wasn't much because I went to junior college for 2 years. I didn't have to start borrowing money to go to school until I was a junior, and I went to an inexpensive state school. So I think I graduated with $5,000 in debt, mm-hmm. and I made $50 or $100 payments a month I think it was $50 for about 5 years, and then I was out of hock. And I don't remember if it would have been a federal or a student loan or a private loan.
The private loans are definitely trickier. There are less options, but even still, we do have options and things, little tricks that we have that we can use to get those loans either wiped out or knocked down.
My number is 312-981-7200. Rae usually gets a few calls and texts when she gets here, so jump in line real quick. We'll pause. Will you take more questions from our listeners?
Sure, be happy to.
Maybe you fall into the two categories we've just described, or maybe there's some other student debt question you have. Here's your chance to get some expert advice. The president has signed an executive order streamlining the debt forgiveness process for disabled veterans if they have a federal student loan. Is it complete forgiveness, Rae?
Complete and total forgiveness, and it's expedited. So it used to be kind of a burdensome process. The application process, the review process was all a little bit difficult to navigate, and now it's just been very much streamlined. And apparently the goal of the executive order is to get as many veterans as possible to just get complete and total forgiveness of their federal loans, just to unburden them.
If you want advice on how to do this, you can do it on your own. But if you want some advice or help, I'll give you the phone number one more time after a couple quick calls. Tom, jump in there. You're on WGN. Hi, Tom.
Want advice on how to do this?
Hi, Tom. You're on the air. Go ahead.
I'd like to find out. I'm a probation officer for Cook County, and my son is a police officer. If there's a chance of getting student loans reduced or eliminated.
How much debt does he have? How much student loan?
About $100,000.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's in the public sector. Does he work full time as a police officer?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, then he's going to be eligible for public sector loan forgiveness, but it's very important that he's in the right payment plan, and we can definitely help him with that because it's all about compliance with the statute. You probably saw articles in the New York Times about people applying for public sector loan forgiveness and being declined. But if you do it the right way, which just means you're in compliance with the statute, then after a certain number of payments, even if those payments are very, very low, which they will be, then the balance is forgiven. So it doesn't even matter if interest accrues, all of it will be wiped out.
How long has he been paying on these, Tom?
3 years.
So, yeah, it should be after another 7 years. But we can probably lower his payment because generally when you call the servicer directly to work out a payment with them, they give you the highest payment available so that you pay off your loans as quickly as possible. But under the statute, he only has to pay 10% of his gross disposable earnings. And then after he makes those payments for 120 months, then the balance will be wiped out.
Can I ask, Tom, what's the monthly payment you guys are paying or he is paying?
Oh, it's up around $1,200 a month all total.
He's in a standard repayment plan, which they're trying to get him to pay off his loans as quickly as possible. And he's probably eligible for a far, far lower monthly payment.
What would you guess he could have it reduced to?
Well, so I would need to know his income, just a ballpark, what his gross income is, if you don't mind.
Probably $65,000, $70,000.
So his payment should probably be around $400 a month or so.
Okay, he will be contacting you then. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, Tom, thanks for the call. And time for one more. Elif, maybe Dawn, you're on WGN. Hi, Dawn, you're on the air.
Hi, thanks so much. I guess my question really did get answered by the previous caller because I, too, have a son who is a police officer with debt, and we were wondering if there was any programs other than the 120 months of continuous payment that he could apply for. But I guess that is the answer that I was looking for.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The main thing is just to make sure that he's not paying too much in terms of those monthly payments. Those monthly payments should be very, very low. And the take-home message about those payments should really be about 10% of his gross disposable income every month. So for a family of his size, so we'll take everything into consideration, they should in terms of children and how many family members he has. But we can generally lower those payments quite a bit.
I'll give the phone number in a second. Lynn, jump in here. Thank you, Dawn. Lynn, you're on WGN. What was your situation or question?
Yes, I'm not a teacher or a veteran or a firefighter. So will the layman person be able to reduce some loans? I have 2 Parent Plus loans.
For how much?
They're each about $30,000.
Are you anywhere close to retirement?
I am 64.
Okay, so when you retire, then we'll be able to drop your payment down significantly to also about 10%, and then you might be eligible for to have no payments for a while and then to have the balance discharged.
So I have to wait till what age then?
Well, so really it's a question of when you retire. Yeah. So if you wanted to retire soon, then we could get it done for you.
What do you mean by retire? When you take Social Security or when you retire?
Either one. Because there are
those
programs,
can be different things.
Right. So if you're retiring and you're not receiving Social Security, then we can just drop your payment down very significantly.
Because your income is off.
Right. And then get you forgiveness after a certain number of months, depending. But then if you have something that makes it hard for you to work, let's say maybe even some ailment, then we can get them discharged altogether. So there are a lot of options we could take a look at for you.
Lynn, thank you for the call. Okay, the phone number for your office is 312-294-8989. The website is financialrelief.com.
Whenever Rae is on, I feel like she's like a telepsychic.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we're getting bits and bits of information of the callers, and then she's solving the problems of the world with them.
I heard a psychic on the radio the other day, and I think we're solving more problems here than the psychic was.
She might be causing more problems.
Okay,
312-294-8989.
Thank you, Rae Kaplan. Nice to see you.
Great to see you, too.